Hey everybody, welcome back. So I haven't done anything at all with ChatGPT yet. I was curious about it. I wanted to see what it did. So I just went in today. This is the very first thing that I've ever put through there. And I wanted to find out what it said about handling reticulated pythons. So we're going to do just a little short fun video today. I'm going to read through this and then we're going to go back through and see how much of it got right, how much of it got wrong today on Intrepid Exotics. Whether you're a lifelong keeper or just getting started, help us encourage responsible keeping, conservation, and public education in the interest of keeping our reptiles safe and healthy as we protect them for future generations. You're invited to spend time with us as we experience these awesome animals together on Intrepid Exotics. So my coffee cup of choice tonight is my monkey cup. I've had this forever. It's been my old standby. And of course, with these late night recording sessions, we've got to have all the coffee we can get on board. So yeah, I thought it'd be really cool to just go into ChatGPT today and see what it said about how you handle reticulated pythons. So we're going to read through this first and then kind of go back over a little bit and see what it got right and what it got wrong, just out of morbid curiosity. Plus, it's an opportunity to I want to be putting out a bunch of little quick videos here with the new recording equipment so that I can kind of tweak things out. So that way, if I come, up to a really good topic that I really want to make sure is a really good video, at least I know I've got all of the settings dialed in on this. So we'll be doing some up here. I've got the lighting set up in here. I think the way I want it. We'll see. We'll play everything by ear as we go. And of course, don't forget, get down, click the subscribe button, hit the notification bell so you can kind of follow our progress as we up our game here with the video quality. Hopefully everything goes pretty quickly because we've got a lot of stuff we want to do. But anyway, let's go ahead and get through this thing. What I typed in when I did the search on ChatGPT is how do you handle a reticulated python? So let's see what it says about it. It says handling reticulated pythons requires caution and expertise as they are large and powerful snakes. Here are some general guidelines for handling reticulated pythons or any large snake. And they've got several bullet points here, the first of which being experience and training. Handling large snakes should only be done by individuals with sufficient experience and training. If you're not experienced, it's advisable to seek assistance from a professional or someone with expertise in handling larger snakes. The two-person rule. Whenever possible, have at least two people present when handling a reticulated python. This is for both the safety of the handlers and the snake. Use proper equipment. Wear appropriate protective gear such as snake hooks, gloves, and long sleeves. This helps to minimize the risk of bites and provide some protection against scratches. We'll go back through this. Approach with caution. Approach the snake slowly and avoid sudden movements. Snakes may be defensive or stressed, and sudden actions can trigger defensive responses. Support the body. Support the snake's body properly when handling. A reticulated python's body can be quite heavy, and proper support helps prevent injuries to the snake and the handler. We can touch on that too. Avoid handling during shedding or feeding. See, I looked up at the camera and I lost my place here already. Kind of small text, and I'm kind of old, so. Avoid handling during shedding or feeding. Avoid handling the snake during shedding or feeding times as they may be more agitated or defensive during these periods. Know the snake's behavior. Understand the behavior of reticulated pythons. They are known for their intelligence and can be more unpredictable than smaller snakes. Be prepared for the possibility of rapid movements. Secure the head. Always keep control of the snake's head. The head is where the snake's primary means of defense, the bite, is located. Use a snake hook to gently guide the head into the desired direction. We'll get into that. Let me get this thing out of there. Big old white thing in front of the camera there. Watch for signs of stress. Pay attention to the snake's behavior. If it shows signs of stress, e.g. hissing, striking, or defensive postures, it's best to put it back into its enclosure. Have a contingency plan. Be prepared for the unexpected. Have a plan in case the snake becomes agitated or difficult to handle, and know how to safely return it to its enclosure. Remember that the reticulated pythons can grow to be very large and strong, and their behavior can be unpredictable. It's crucial to prioritize safety and the well-being of both the snakes and the handlers. If you are not experienced in handling large snakes, consider consulting with a professional reptile handler or a herpetologist for guidance. So that's that. They got a lot of stuff right. I'm really surprised. They hit a lot of the basics. I've seen a couple people do some different reviews off ChatGPT, and it pretty much tends to be the same thing across the board. There's, generally in a broad scope, everything seems to be pretty much on point with some little details that are, of course, off. So I don't know how many of them you guys picked up. If there's any differences or discrepancies or anything like that you guys picked up that I didn't get, make sure to drop them down in the comments. But like I said, this is just kind of a fun thing. And we'll see. We'll go back through here a little bit and see what they got right and what they got wrong. Of course, let's say, for instance, just for sake of argument, we're talking about a 16-foot reticulated python. Big enough snake to where, it's manageable, but you still got to have a couple people there. So yeah, of course, it should be done with individuals with sufficient experience. And you should seek out somebody if you don't have expertise handling large snakes. Facts. I mean, and just like we tell everybody, if you're going to, get a larger breed of snake, get out and find somebody that's experienced and have them mentor and tutor you on how to manage the snake. You got to have firsthand experience. It's one of those things where you've really got to experience it before you know what you're doing. So that's on point. 2 people present rule. We all beat this about the head and shoulders ad nauseum. And, we're talking, depending on the person and their skill level, maybe you want to have 2 people for an 8 to 10 foot snake. Maybe you're fine with those by yourself. You got a higher skill level. Maybe you want to have a second person for a 15, 16 foot snake. I always recommend, once you get over like the 14, 15 foot mark, at least have somebody in earshot so that if something happens, you can get some help. And it's not because, not necessarily because it's going to kill you or not because you're not an experienced handler or whatever. But I've been bitten and wrapped by a 16-foot snake before, and I needed help getting her off. She wasn't going to kill me. I could have sat there with her all night, and we could have fought back and forth. She would never kill me. But what the end result would have been is the bite would have been a lot worse. I would have had a lot more tearing of the skin and stuff like that. The scarring would have been worse. There would have been a lot more damage. Because there's just a whole lot of stuff. We did videos on that. And we can do more if you want. Wear protective gear, such as snake hooks. Well, you don't wear snake hooks, you use them. But of course, have snake hooks around. Gloves and long sleeves, Now, there's a couple different perspectives on this. One of which, if you're working inside in a reptile house and you've got a couple hundred snakes that you're cleaning or feeding or something like that, you've got to take them out of the enclosures constantly. You're not going to be in there in a 75 to 80 degree reptile house with a coat on, with leather on and stuff like that. Just not going to happen. It's not going to stay on very long. It's just going to be really uncomfortable. I do got to say, when I first got Tigger, my 12-foot male, he really didn't like people a whole lot. So the first few times handling him in there, I did have my leather coat on just for my own peace of mind, but I never needed it. Even the ones that can be a little bit touchy, if a lot of this too depends on your handling experience. If you've got a lot of experience handling snakes that may not like people, you're going to be a lot more comfortable handling without stuff like that. I'm a bullhead anyway. You hear a lot of people, like with Niles, my monitor lizard, you hear a lot of people talking about wearing long sleeves and wearing gloves and stuff. I'm just too tactile. When I'm working with my animals, I want to be able to feel them. I don't want to have those gloves there. And I do get, when I work with Niles, I get scratched up quite a bit. So, protective gear, OSHA may not like me saying it, but there's a time and a place. Not always when you're dealing with big retics. I really wouldn't worry about it too much. Unless you're fairly certain that you're going to have problems with them. Approach the snake slowly. Avoid sudden movement. Snakes may be stressed, or sudden actions can trigger defensive. Well, yeah, I mean, that's really general, and that's what you would expect. That goes into a lot of the handling, just like the video that we put out the last time. I'll link that last one in the end screen, where we talk about their body language and stuff like that. Support their body properly. That's really important. Sounds like a simple thing, but that's where that snake's sense of security comes from. That's where the trust comes from when you're working with them. So yeah, I mean, supporting their body properly is a really good point. Reticulated python's body can be quite heavy. Proper support helps prevent injury. Yeah. Can't tell you how many Monday, Tuesdays, and Wednesdays I've spent limping around the job site because I was out in the backyard dragging my mainland retics around. Threw my back out, twisted something, and now I'm limping for a week. A lot of truth to that. Avoid handling during shedding and feeding times. Absolutely. That's all right. Understand the behavior. They're known for their intelligence and can be more unpredictable than smaller snakes. I don't like the way he phrased that. They are intelligent snakes. And in my opinion, that makes them more predictable than, than the less intelligent snakes. The less intelligent snakes are going to be a lot more reactive, and they're not going to be thinking through things. The more intelligent the snake is, I think, the more predictable they are, especially after you've had time working with them. They recognize you more readily, and they remember the interactions a lot more. So I got to say, I think they're off base there. The intelligence doesn't make them less predictable. I think with retics, it makes them more predictable. Because I can normally get a really good handle on what's going on with mine, which is one of the reasons why I haven't been bit by them. Let's see. Keep control of the snake's head. No, you can't do that. Now, when you're first going into the enclosure, my impression of keeping control of the snake's head is using the hook just to bump it out of the way, just to make sure that you can initiate that contact with them, get their mind working, and maybe have the sense of security there of having the hook in between their head and your hand. But yeah, you're not going to maintain control of a retic's head. If you're handling them, you're handling typically the first third of their body, and their head is going off doing whatever it's going to do. So what you do is you read their behavior and you look for signs that they're getting anxious or starting to maybe get frightened or maybe getting a little bit defensive. Because you're not really going to control the head. You can move your body around and reposition their head and stuff like that, but you don't handle them grabbing them by the head or anything. So they're a little bit off base there. Use a snake hook. Yep, that's all right. Pay attention to the snake's behavior. Yep, absolutely. Now, this says, if it shows signs of hissing, striking, and everything, it's best to put it back in its enclosure. I disagree with that. Because just like you've seen with Silent Bob, the Sri Lankan here, he showed signs of hissing and striking through the first half of my handling videos with him. The only way we got through that with him is by continuing to handle him and letting him relax, letting him start to see what's going on, letting him learn to do safe. So that off base, that last line there, I'd probably ignore it. Once you get that animal out, my personal way of doing it is when that animal goes back into the enclosure, I want to make sure that they're going into that enclosure under the best possible circumstances. So if they come out and they're defensive and they're biting, I want to make sure that before I put them back in there, I'm getting those curious movements, the long tongue flicks, the reduced rate of breathing and so forth. And I want to see them relaxed, and I want them to go back and have that positive memory instead of them bite. Oh, okay. Throw them back in the enclosure. All they know is they just had a fight, and now they're back there by themselves. So the next time they see you, they're going to think of the last time they saw you, which was bite, and then getting thrown back in their enclosure. So not a big fan of that last one. Be prepared for the unexpected. Have a plan in case a snake becomes agitated and they handle and all that stuff. They can grow to be very big and strong. Rough. Crucial to prioritize well-being of snake handlers. Not experienced. Yeah. the key point in there is have a plan. Just like I say, if you've got a larger snake, you definitely need to make sure you have somebody else available that can help you if something happens. Always have things like Listerine or alcohol or something like that available that you can use to help facilitate a release. I use Listerine. I use the old brown nasty Listerine, and I've had to use that on bites before. It works. And the good thing about that is once you pull the teeth out of your arm, you can use the Listerine to clean it up. And depending on your circumstances, whether you've got a first aid kit or, hose it down with Listerine, wrap it with a paper towel until you can get back and get a bandage on it or whatever, and just keep driving on so you don't bleed all over the place. But so I thought this was kind of cool. I'm gonna go ahead and look around, do some AI stuff, and see what I can find, see what kind of interesting ideas I can get off of it. But I do got to say, overall, I was pretty impressed with how closely they nailed it with this. They've got a couple nuanced stuff that could probably be better, but considering it's AI generated, I think it did pretty good. So I'm gonna get this out, and I'll put in the end screen the Stir Locking series so you can see that as we was talking about that. I'll put in also the video for the handling, because we touched on handling a little bit in here. So if you haven't seen it yet, it'll be the video with the green tree python on it. Go check that out, and we'll see you guys next time on Intrepid Exotics.